Hello, this is Nice Wander. I hope you had a happy Thanksgiving. We're now in between the two major holiday seasons, and there's a few stories that have popped up here in the last few days, I think, that are very important, and they're all connected to economics. And it's really interesting how to tie all of these stories in together, actually. And the first one, of course, while most people heard the news that Fidel Castro had passed in Cuba, a more interesting story is one that's elaborated and one that I've been aware of for some time, but not quite to the extent that I had discovered this week with an article about the urban agriculture and the food sovereignty on the island of Cuba, and how a lot of the dependency on external markets and, for instance, on oil and how to get food from other places does become a financial burden on an economy, and particularly affects the people that have the least access to the resources, whether it be money or other types of things such as vehicles for transport or food, even jobs. All of it is impacted by how all of us connect to external markets. Well, in Cuba, apparently they sensed that the Soviet Union was collapsing, and they started working on their own community-based agricultural programs, particularly in cities such as Havana, and they would utilize any space they could to grow food. And so it became not only a localized market, but it also was a way to be, food independent from the outside sources. It also put more people back to work, decreased poverty. There were challenges, there were issues. It was a process, but it's a remarkable story, actually, that all of us can learn from, especially when there is a perhaps impending economic collapse. Certainly, the Cuban culture is an example that can be used looking at that. So that's the story that comes to my mind also in lieu of the death of Fidel Castro. The second story I want to get into pertains to the war on terrorism. Ben Swan, who is a reporter with a CBS affiliate, did a really good story. He has a segment called Reality Check. And what have we benefited from this war on terror? We have a multi-trillion-dollar military and war budget now, and have since we've entered into these wars on terror, as they've been called. $6 trillion, something like that's been spent so far since 2003 or so. And what has really benefited? We've each paid approximately $7,000 into this war on terror, and the main thing that's come out of it is what? More war and more terrorism. And all the data, all the statistics are there, from Syria to Libya to Iraq, and on and on. There's nothing that's benefited the vast majority of people on this planet. And which takes me to the third story. Attorney Robert Kennedy Jr., the son of course, Robert Kennedy from the 60s that we all know. He has done a lot of environmental law, and he visited Standing Rock Indian Reservation and laid it all out about what's going on illegally, basically, with laying down this pipeline for the North Dakota pipeline, and the connection to Donald Trump, also the Keystone XL pipeline. I'm going to show a little bit of that video, and then let's talk about it for a minute.
It has the arrogance to break the law and then the ability to get away with it. not only that, but when people stand up peacefully to ask that the law be enforced, and instead of aligning itself with the law-abiding citizens of our country, the power of this state and other states are aligning themselves with the law-breaking entity. Now, I say they're law-breaking because we know I've been an environmental attorney for 30-some years, and I've been fighting these battles, and I know what they're doing is illegal, and that we will win this battle ultimately in court. And they're trying to build this pipeline fast so that they don't have to face their day in court, so that they can say, well, it's already built. You know, yeah, we trampled on some of the laws, but it's already built. A reporter asked me a few moments ago, about an hour ago, you know, what's the point of stopping them now? They've already built most of the pipeline. And I've said to the reporter, well, if you had people who were robbing a bank and they came in the bank with their guns blazing and they tied up people and they started emptying the cash register and the police then came, do you think the police would say, well, they've gotten this far, we ought to let them just take the money? What's the difference? What would happen if a really devious, diabolical polluter said, I'm going to build something, but I'm only going to build it a little bit at a time, at the airport or whatever, and therefore each segment I won't have to do it will just be an incremental change in the status quo, so I won't have to do an environmental impact statement. And Congress foresaw that, and they said, no, we're not going to let them do that. They have to look at the whole project, the whole program, and you can't segment it. There's a section of NEPA that is an anti-segmentation section. It says you can't segment a project. If it's a big project, you have to admit it's a big project. You have to do the EIS for the whole thing. So they're trying to invoke that loophole for a project that is going to disrupt 209 streams. If they had to build a pipeline across one stream or one river like the Missouri River, they'd have to do a full environmental impact statement. They're trying to invoke that loophole for a project that will produce the same amount of carbon pollution as 29 coal-burning power plants. If somebody built a single power plant and the only environmental impact it had was the carbon, they still have to do an environmental impact statement. And CEQ passed rules in August that specifically said they got to do it for carbon discharge. So we know what the law is. This company knows what the law is. They use a flim-flam to break the law. And now when peaceful protesters are saying, wait a minute, we want to see a cost-benefit analysis, the company is saying, no, we're not going to do that. And the reason they don't want to do it is because they don't want the American people to see the results of that cost-benefit analysis. Because we all know what it says. This pipeline is not going to benefit the American people. This pipeline, this is what they'd be forced to disclose. This pipeline is going to benefit a few billionaires like Donald Trump, and it's going to make them richer by impoverishing the rest of us, by impoverishing the American people, by diminishing quality of life for people all over the globe, by adding to global warming, which is the biggest threat to civilization. Somebody asked me a few minutes ago, again, what did I think, what would my message be to Donald Trump? And, I don't want to make a judgment about what Donald Trump is going to do or what he's not going to do, because I don't know. I know what he said. What he said is that he wants to build this pipeline, the XL pipeline, and many, many other pipelines. And I hope that before he takes the reins of power, he will educate himself about energy policy. And he will understand that this is something that may be good for his pocketbook, but it's not good for America, and it's not good for the world. This pipeline will not benefit this country, because the oil from this pipeline, we know, is going to go to Asia, and it's going to go to Latin America, so it will increase supplies in those nations, which is not good for our manufacturers. It will create pollution, which is not good for our children. It will create global warming. President-elect Trump has said that he wants to go after ISIS, and he is going to crush it. But the Pentagon, I would hope that before he makes decisions about this pipeline, that he assesses properly the risks and rewards, and what he'll find. And I hope he asks the Pentagon, what is the greater threat to this nation, ISIS or global warming? Because the Pentagon has already answered that in a very comprehensive report. And they've said the single greatest threat to American security is coming from global warming. This is a national security threat.
So, there you have it. It's all about economics. You know. And yet we have serious issues here, people. We can't just sit on our hands and rest on our laurels and just squabble amongst things that don't really, that aren't top priority. We need to understand there are priorities, and then there are top priorities. We need to come together right now, here and now, wherever we are, online, in person, and discuss top priorities. And this pertains to our communities, this pertains to our country, the United States, or wherever we live in the world, and then a global perspective. It's all tied in. It's all important right now. This is getting critical. This is why the North Dakota pipeline is so important. It's also about these people in their community getting clean water, but it's also looking at the bigger picture about what is intended with this pipeline, who's going to benefit and who isn't going to benefit, and what does this mean for the planet as well. I love you. Let's discuss.